Hello. What's going on? What's going on? Testing on the ones and the twos. Making sure I sound good. Making sure everything sounds good. What's going on, people? It's been a minute. What's going on? Shout out from Rideshare. What's going on? We got Von D in the building. Bionic Scoop in the building. 291 Technology in the building. What is going on, one and all? How you guys are doing? How are you guys doing? It is super late. I wasn't going to do it tonight. I wasn't going to do it another night, but this is a little bit hard for me to ignore, even for me. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to explain a little bit about what's going on. I'm just going to go straight into it. Okay. So Elon Musk, like I said, bought Twitter, and it's been quite the show ever since he purchased Twitter. Now, ever since he purchased Twitter, there's this argument about free speech, right? So Elon earlier tonight tweeted that he was going to release the information on the president's son. Okay, he's going to release the story on Hunter Biden. And here's the thread. Now, this thread doesn't give a lot of new information for me per se, but it's a lot of information for people who just were just simply not aware. So all I'm going to do is simply go down the thread, give my a little bit of my opinion on some of the information, and we'll leave it at that for the next time I go live, so I can discuss things more in depth. And Elon has said that he's going to drop the part two is going to drop around tomorrow. So I don't know what time tomorrow. I would like to do it live to break that down tomorrow, since it's a big story, but we will see what happens. So let's go ahead and get into it without further ado. The reporter is Matt Taibbi. I don't know much about him, but he's a reporter, I believe, and he has a Substack. So first up is what you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter files telling this credible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms, Twitter, in its conception. So we're just going to skip past this because this is just the fluff for the article. By 2020, requests from connected actors to deleted tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back handled. So this is the first step of Twitter showing. No, this is Hunter suppression. Yeah, this is suppression of the story. So this is the first example of the Twitter team reaching out to the Biden team, reaching out to Twitter, deleting tweets from celebrities and people on Twitter. Okay. This is the first step. Celebrities and unknowns alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. And again, you see on October 25th, I grabbed the first account under SI, deferred to safety on the high-profile second one. Stephen Lujan, he's back. Real James Wood is just got back too. Okay, so this is the DNC, directly from the DNC, colluding, ordering social media platforms to silence private citizens. Both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both Trump and the White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, which is the left. There were more channels, more ways to complain open to the left. And here's a quick snapshot of the contributions by party of recipient. And of course, you have overwhelmingly majority comes from the Democrats, and the minority is from the Republicans. The resulting slant in content moderation decisions is visible in the documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and high level executives. Okay, there were more throat clearing about the process. So there was like a delay in the tweet. And from 13 to 15, there's no tweets. So we don't know what happened. The Twitter Files Part 1, How and Why Twitter Blocked the Hunter Biden Laptop Story. I'm glad you looked through all of this. I gave up on trying to read through all. Yeah, it was hard to follow the live tweets because he kind of like stopped in between. But I was following it, and I was listening to the Twitter space with Kim.com and a bunch of other reporters. It was interesting. But I got the gist of most of everything when I was listening to it. So this is going to be a second part. So this is just the first part of this. This is going to be a second part tomorrow. On October 14th, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails and expose based on the contents of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. Now, if you remember when this article was posted, the New York Post actually got suspended on Twitter. And for context, the New York Post is one of the oldest publications in America. So that's like Twitter suspending CNN's account. That's how big that was. Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message, means that they stopped you from even messaging people with the story. A tool reserved for extreme cases, including example child pornography. White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious letter from Trump campaign staffer Mike Hahn, who received at least pretend to care for the next 20 days. So pretty much to sum up this email is him asking why was it that she was locked out, and I'm just going to read the story. It's not that long. Has been locked out of her account for simply talking about the New York Post story. All she did was cite the story and firsthand reporting that has been reported by other outlets and not disputed by the Biden campaign. I need an answer immediately on how or when/how she will be unlocked. I also don't appreciate how nobody on this team called me regarding the news that you'll be censoring news articles. Like I said, at least to pretend to care for the next 20 days. And that was the 20 days before, I believe, the transition of power. So that's why he was saying it. This led public policy executive Caroline Strom to send out a polite what the fuck query. 7 employees noted that there was tension between the comm/policy teams, who had little/less control over moderation, and the safety/trust teams. Again, hi team, are you able to take a closer look here? Thank you. Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop was going on. Keep it techie. Strom's note returned that the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's hack materials website. So again, here's the email of the laptop, the story being in violation of the hack materials website, their policy. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in a laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust Vijaya Gadde playing a key role. So again, if you've been following the whole Twitter debacle, Vijaya Gotti was a key proponent against Elon acquiring Twitter. She was the head lawyer. She was one of the key people involved in blocking Elon from purchasing Twitter, mainly because of what he intended to do with the platform and throwing all of their dirty laundry out into the street. What's going on, Rick? Yay. And again, these threads of trying to paint Jack Dorsey as a victim. Jack Dorsey is definitely not a victim. Yes, he was a figurehead in Twitter. He didn't have much power in Twitter when at the before he left, but he's definitely not innocent, and he's not a victim in this. They just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. You can see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including GAD and former trust and safety chief Yoel Roth. Comms official Trenton Kennedy writes, "I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this as unsafe." So what I'm going to do for you guys too, I'm just going to put this in the pin section. I'm going to pin this, and you guys can follow this thread along. So it was hard to follow when it was live, but once it's all said and it's done, it's real easy to follow now. Now a lot of these images are very lengthy, so I don't want to read all of them, but some of them provide a lot of context to what's being shared right now. BMT, what's going on? I'm struggling, Trenton Kennedy. I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this as unsafe. And I think the best explainability argument for this externally would be that we're waiting to understand if this story is the result of hacked material. So pretty much they were trying to understand if what they were doing was right because it came from hacked information. By this point, everyone knew this was fucked, said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to err. So pretty much they knew they fucked up. They knew what they did was wrong, but they want to continue to do it because they didn't really know what else they had going for them, which is not the best, especially when you're considering the constitutional problems that this is causing, and especially when you're including the government in it. So let me just go ahead and here we go. Okay. The policy's basis is hacked materials, though, as discussed, is an emerging situation where the facts remain unclear, giving the severe risk here and lessons of 2016 in regards to fake news. We're erring on the side of including a warning and preventing this content from being amplified. And to end, Ian Plunkett, whatever we do in the comms, this will become a bias claim for Jack pre-hearing immediately. Let's make it clear this is the hearing that Jack Dorsey attended with Ted Cruz. Let's make it clear we're proactively but cautiously interpreting this through the lens of our hack materials policy and allowing the link with a warning and significant reduction of spread. So this is them saying that they're going to reduce the story from being spread. My man CO, what's good? What's going on, ER? What's going on, bro? So we're breaking down the Elon Twitter files that dropped tonight. We're breaking down the Elon Twitter files that dropped tonight in regards to the president's son story. Former VP of Global Comms Brandon Borman asks, "Can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy?" To Ian's point, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy as part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked materials? We are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing. To which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seems to advise staying the non-course because caution is warranted. Okay. The fundamental problem with tech companies and content moderation, many people in charge of speech know/care little about speech. Now, this is where it gets spicy. And have to be told the basics by outsiders, to wit. In one humorous exchange on day one, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reaches out to Gaddy to gently suggest she hop on the phone to talk about the backlash re-speech. Connor was the only Democrat official I could find in the files who expressed concern. Like mafia game was going on, generating huge backlash on the Hill re-speech. Happy to chat if you're up for it. The only Democrat, so remember this name, Ro Khanna. That's the only Democrat that cared about censoring people. Gaddy replies quickly, immediately driving into the weeds of Twitter policy, unaware Khanna is more worried about the Bill of Rights. So thank you for reaching out. We appreciate the heads up. We put out a clarifying thread of tweets earlier this evening to explain our policy around the posting of private information and linking directly to hacked materials. The press secretary's account was not permanently suspended. We requested that she delete the tweet containing material that is in violation of our rules, and her account is restricted until she complies. I'd be happy to jump on the phone if helpful. My team in DC, Jessica and Lauren, are copied here and also available to discuss. Connor tries to reroute the conversation to the First Amendment, of which is generally hard to find in the files. So this right here is Ro Khanna trying to explain the freedom of speech to the Twitter, to the people in charge of Twitter policy and blickety bloppity bloop. All right. Now, this is where the conversation, this is where the files go left. This is what starts to get a lot of people upset. Ro Khanna to Vijaya Gadadi, Ro Khanna, hope you're well, Vijaya. This seems a violation of the First Amendment principles. If there's a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think the New York Times should have that right. A journalist should not be held accountable for the illegal actions of the source unless they actively aided the hack. So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in the keeping of the principles of the New York Times versus Sullivan case. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong, but the story now has become more about censorship than relatively innocuous emails, and it's become a bigger deal than it would have been. The Streisand effect. It also is now leading to serious efforts to curtail Section 230, which involves platforms and being held liable and platforms being considered to be publishers, many of which would have been a mistake. I believe Twitter itself should curtail what it recommends or puts in trending news, and your policy against QAnon groups is all good. It's a hard balance. But in the heat of the presidential campaign, restricting dissemination of newspaper articles, even if the New York Post is far right, seems like it will invite more backlash than it will do good. Please keep this communication between just us and Jack, and no need to CC the team or forward to them. Just wanted to offer my 2 cents, which means I get what you're doing. I'm kind of on your side, but I don't want you to get too far into the weeds, because I think you're doing something that you're not really aware of what you're doing. However, I'm still on your side. That's what that means. Within a day, head of public policy Lauren Culbertson receives a ghastly letter/report from Carl Szabo of the research firm NetChoice, which had already polled 12 members of Congress, 9 Republicans and 3 Democrats, from the House Judiciary Committee to Republican Representative Jude Schu's office. Right, so here's the email. Yesterday, NetChoice's Chris Marchese met informally with 9 Republicans, 3 Democrat House staffers to gather intel about Facebook and Twitter and the New York Post story. The staffers hailed from the House Judiciary Committee. Right? NetChoice lets Twitter know a bloodbath awaits in upcoming Hill hearings, with members saying it's a tipping point, complaining tech has grown so big that they can't even regulate themselves So government may need to intervene. This was the Ted Cruz, representative. We might know if he's still here. But this is when the big tech got up there on Capitol Hill and they got drilled about how they're running their platforms. High level takeaway: every Republican said this is a tipping point. It's just too much, and both Democrats and Republicans were angry. Zasbo reports to Twitter that some Hill figures are characterizing laptop story as text access Hollywood moment. When asked just how bad the situation is, one staffer said it's text access Hollywood moment, and it has no Hillary to hide behind. Others were more blunt. Tech is screwed, and rightfully so. The First Amendment. Now, I'm gonna just kill the music right here. Now, here is the smoking gun. Right now, again, from my perspective, I was already well aware of all of this. If you've been following my channel, I covered this early 2021 when they had these hearings. So none of this is new to me, but this is good for other people to see how deep this actually goes and that it's not really a conspiracy theory. The First Amendment isn't absolute. Zasbo letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes. They want more moderation. As for the Bill of Rights, it's not absolute. The Democrats, meanwhile, complain that the companies are inept. They let conservatives muddy the water and make the Biden campaign look corrupt, even though Biden is innocent. They linked this to Hillary Clinton's emails. They linked this to Hillary Clinton's email scandal. She did nothing wrong, but because the press wouldn't let the story go, it became a scandal far out of proportion. In their mind, social media is doing the same thing. It doesn't moderate enough harmful content, so when it does, like it did yesterday, it becomes a story. If the companies moderated more, conservatives wouldn't even think to use social media for disinformation, misinformation, or otherwise. The Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred. The First Amendment isn't absolute. Take that for what you will. Moving on. And that is the end. That disappears. This is the woman right here. This is Vijaya. This is Vijaya Gaddy right here. Okay? And I believe an amazing subplot of the Hunter Biden laptop affair was how much was done without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey and how long it took for the situation to get unfucked, as one employee put it, even after Dorsey jumped in. There are multiple instances in the files of Dorsey intervening to question suspensions and other moderation actions for accounts across the political spectrum. What's going on, Zero? It's definitely been a while. The problem with the hack materials ruling, several sources said, was that this normally required an official / law enforcement finding of a hack, but such a finding never appears throughout what one executive describes as a whirlwind 24-hour company-wide mess. Let me see if the press analysis. I'll just leave this on the screen. You can read this at your discretion. Leave this on the screen for a minute or two. I'm not going to read all that. It's okay. So this is in conclusion. Okay. So I don't have a background setup, so I'm just going to leave it on Twitter for a second. So Elon is going to drop this tomorrow night. He's going to do a part 2. When I heard this, was going to my Twitter feed for a minute. Simply, I tweeted, for tonight's entertainment, we present the Twitter files. Just be entertained. If you get caught up and sucked into the show, you're doing it wrong. And we have some reactions. We got Clay Travis of Outkick. We got Clay Travis of Outkick Sports. Right. I think he might have deleted his Clay Travis of Outkick Sports. Everything Elon Musk shared tonight about Twitter's unconstitutional collusion with the campaign only got more extreme once the president took office. And significantly, this wasn't just happening at Twitter. The administration did this all with big tech companies. Democrats have spent 2 years claiming a few hundred people on January caused threats to democracy, while they have been caught engaging in unconstitutional collusion with big tech in our elections. We knew it was happening, but now there's a smoking gun evidence of it. If we had an honest Department of Justice, there would be many big tech employees. The administration included officials charged with crimes for this collusion. And I still want to know who masterminded all of this at the FBI. We know the campaign and big tech conspired in the election, which makes Watergate seem like jaywalking. But I suspect that what happened as soon as Biden entered the White House is going to be even more egregious because they were in full control of the government by then. The collusion with big tech once Biden became president is a flagrantly unconstitutional violation of the First Amendment. They demanded political adversaries be banned for opposing them. It's breathtaking, the biggest political crimes of our lives by far. Everything the Democrats falsely alleged Trump was doing with Russia, they were actually doing with big techs. Full stop in the story. Carlos, I don't know what's going to kill Elon Musk. Elon Musk, tune in for episode 2 of Twitter Files tomorrow. So let me give a little bit of my opinion of this now. I'm just going to leave my Twitter up here because I don't have a background, anything else. I don't have my camera on. So forgive me. Like I stated in my YouTube video when I discussed Elon buying Twitter, I stated a couple of points. One, he was going to buy Twitter. There was no circumstance where Elon would not buy Twitter. He was going to buy Twitter. Two, Elon purchasing Twitter had ulterior motives. There was something else behind Elon buying Twitter besides just simply Elon just buying Twitter. Three, there's a lot of players involved, and there's a war that's going on with a bunch of people involved that we don't know who's on which side. And all I can say is that Elon is on the opposite side of the people he's going at. But don't get it confused. None of these people are on any of our sides. So don't get too caught up in the middle of them warring with each other, because ultimately it doesn't have a whole lot to do with us. However, pay attention and get involved, or just pay attention to what's going on. Now, the problem that the biggest smoking gun of everything that was covered in the Twitter files was the last drop, because what people believe to be a conspiracy theory, what people believe to be not real, was actually proven to be true. It was not just the conservatives mad. It wasn't the conservatives crying about a private company, what a private company was doing on with their followers and their subscribers. Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, all these big tech platforms, were acting as the right hand of the government. colluding to silence American citizens and politicians. The biggest problem that people should have had was when they silenced the president. Because silencing the president was such an overreach of a social media platform, it should have never been it should have never happened, and it should have never been cheered. So we're going to see a shitstorm. We're going to see a shitstorm Monday next week that we have never seen politically ever since maybe the January protest and then maybe the 2020 protest. It's going to be a shit show next week starting Monday. The politicians won't say anything this weekend. They won't have anything to say this weekend, but coming Monday morning, it will be hell on earth in the political spectrum and on the Hill. And there will be committees held and scheduled, and they're going to start dragging some of these people in on Capitol Hill to answer for what's been done. Now, again, a lot of those meetings are show and horse and pony circuses. Nothing actually gets done. This is why Twitter is so important, because you don't need to see a hearing on Capitol Hill. You have the emails right here on Twitter. Twitter acting by itself to suppress free speech is not a First Amendment violation, but acting under the orders from the government to suppress free speech with no judicial review is. Twitter shutting people down is not illegal, but Twitter being the right hand of the government to silence people is. Not to be dramatic or anything, but holy shit. Seeing leaks of handled accounts being silenced. Now, I don't want to hype it up too much because there's more to come out, and there's more about the Hunter Biden story to be released as to, the truth of the story, whether or not the story is true or not. That's going to get released tomorrow afternoon or night. When it does, depending on the time and depending on what I'm doing, I will try to go live and cover the tweets live, because a part of what I do on my channel, outside of talking about tech and video production, I do talk about these things that happen on social media because they are important. If you are a content creator and you are involved in social media, if you're just a consumer of content, it doesn't matter too much to you. So I've shared the tweet in my chat room. Please feel free to follow the thread, read the thread yourself, take the time and read the emails and read the conversations that people were having in the thread, and come to your own conclusions. All I'm going to say is that to summarize the Twitter Files Part 1 that was dropped tonight, it's as simple as this with the Twitter Files. Everything you were told was a lie. That's it. No grandstanding, no intellectual quote. Everything you were told was a lie. And any theory that you heard that you thought was a conspiracy theory was actually true. And if I was a betting man, I would say that the Twitter Files are probably going to include something about C-19 and the experimental inoctions that come along with it. If I'm a betting man, if there's more to this, I think it's going to involve. I think this going to be drops that involve C-19. So, like I said when I first talked about Elon Musk buying Twitter, it just wasn't simply about buying Twitter. It just wasn't simply about trying to liquidate shares of Tesla. It just wasn't simply about trying to get Twitter at a cheaper price. there's a lot of moving parts that are going on with this stuff with Twitter and the government trying to censor free speech. And at the very least, pay attention to what's going on, be aware, and see where this goes. But it's been a minute since I've gone live, but it is late. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to the stream. I hope you guys got something out of this. And whenever he goes live, whenever the information drops again, I'm definitely going to cover it. So he said tomorrow, maybe tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon. We don't know, but we'll see. The next time, guys, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. The light will shine and the darkness will expose all the bad shit. Well, I hope so. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Goodbye.